Thank you very much for the opportunity to present this case of violations against the rights of Mother Nature that come from the financialization of nature. My name is Jutta. I present this case based on nearly 20 years, 17 to be precise, of experience of visiting communities. I will leave with the panel some of the materials, always based from the experience I have had in the communities, and combined that with the analytical or the conceptual analysis of the heart of this violation. What is the case? The case is that a whole new raft of initiatives summarized under the name of financialization of nature constitute a violation of the rights of Mother Earth as they're enshrined in the Universal Declaration. Those new initiatives summarized under the heading of financialization of nature, they violate the heart of the rights of the Universal Declaration because they deny the right of Mother Earth to her integrity. Those initiatives rely on parceling up nature into measurable units, denying the integrity of Mother Earth by doing so. And even more so, they go as far as saying those parceled up pieces of Mother Earth that have been measured and named as ecosystem units, units of carbon, units of biodiversity, units of water, they can be swapped, not physically, but conceptually. They can be swapped. Nature in one place can be continued to be destroyed, as we have heard from the witnesses and both of the affected persons, in fact, the first one in particular from Mauritius, carbon credits being sold from Mauritius, a country that's facing annihilation as a cause of overpollution with carbon. And yet the country facing this annihilation is helping the continued pollution. And financialization of nature is the mechanism that makes that possible. And that is the center, really, of the violation of the case that I will present. Previous tribunals have already heard evidence on this case. And our case today will complement that. In particular, we will focus on one of the main instruments that's being discussed also in the UN Climate Conference, and that is the case of REDD, an instrument supposedly meant to combine the protection of forests and the fight against the climate crisis. In reality, it does neither, and it aggravates both. This instrument is called REDD, the Reduction of Emissions from Deforestation and Forest Degradation. We could have equally chosen for our case against the perpetrators, the institutions, the companies, and the conservation organizations that advance and engage in this financialization of nature. We could have equally chosen other processes, such as the Clean Development Mechanism of the Kyoto Protocol. We could have equally chosen the emerging trade in biodiversity offset trading that allows mining companies to mine and destroy and violate Mother Earth further, even in areas that are formally protected, as long as they present an argument that the measured up Mother Earth that they're about to destroy will be replicated, restored, and made even better in another place. That's the absurdity that lies behind or lies beneath the case that we're presenting here. So we could have equally chosen any of those mechanisms. We have chosen, because of the pertinence of the case of red and the number of affected communities by this case of red, this particular example, and we will hear from our expert witness, Melissa Moreano from Ecuador, about a particular program in Ecuador, and we'll hear from our representative of affected communities, Ken Henshaw from Social Action in Nigeria, about a very particular case of violation, both against the guardians of Mother Earth and of Mother Earth herself. Let me, in the next slide, okay, I can do this myself, how wonderful. In the next slide, if I know how it works, I can. Reiterate again that even though the cases the tribunal has heard already and the case that the tribunal will hear today, they may vary in the details. The names of the mechanisms might be different, RED, CDM, biodiversity offsets. But at the heart, they all go back to the same violation of denying the uniqueness, the indivisibility, and the interrelatedness, the relationships that make Mother Earth whole. They break those relationships each and every time because they pretend that Mother Earth can be described as a collection of units that have been measured and can be swapped. You can destroy one unit here as long as you restore another unit there. This is the central violation that underlies all of those compensation, financialization initiatives. And that is why, as I said, we could have equally chosen any other initiative to present our case here today. And just to give you an idea, of course, there is no supermarket where you can go and buy the units, but conceptually, there is a supermarket where the mining companies, the oil companies, the coal companies, the infrastructure companies go and just say, we have bought here in our shopping cart the units required and give us the permission to destroy another piece of Mother Earth. That is already the reality, and this is the violation, that this happened, that there was a concept being allowed to be advanced that allows Mother Nature conceptually to be understood as a service provider that can be divided up and whose services can be destroyed here as long as they are protected there. With this violation, with this trade in units to make up or compensate destruction of Mother Earth in one place to supposedly make up the destruction in another place, come two other sets of violations of rights. Mostly rights of guardians of Mother Earth, of those communities that have maintained the integrity, respected, and are an integral part of Mother Earth. Those two sets of rights are first, that the buyer of one of those units, they're called things like offset credits, carbon credits, biodiversity credits, offsets. They come in a whole range of different names. The buyer of this credit buys the right to pollute or destroy Mother Earth over and above a legally or socially established limit. Because the credit says, I have the right to go beyond the agreed upon limit of destruction, already a violation, but I can go beyond that as an industry, as a company, because I have paid for another part of Mother Earth to be protected from destruction. So on balance, there is no destruction. That's the argument. That's the right that a carbon credit, a biodiversity credit, conveys to the holder, to the buyer of that credit. The second violation comes from the right to control and monitor the piece of land, the part of Mother Earth, from which that carbon credit or that biodiversity credit has been derived. Because unlike a sack of bananas or a sack of coffee or rice or beans, the trade of a carbon credit is not a one-off interaction. It is the right that it is a transaction based on somebody who sold the credit, making the promise to maintain Mother Earth intact so that the destruction elsewhere can be compensated. But that destruction that's justified by the credit here, that destruction elsewhere, say at the coal mine, say at the oil well, say at the infrastructure project, that damage to Mother Earth, that violation of Mother Earth at that place will remain for decades to come, for centuries to come. So the promise that's behind this carbon credit or this biodiversity credit also has to be maintained for as long as the damage to Mother Earth goes and is maintained. And for all of that time, the holder of the offset credit has the right to control the land that now is a carbon protection forest, that now is a biodiversity compensation area, that now is a water compensation area. That's a huge infringement on the rights of the guardians of Mother Earth who have maintained that place intact in the first place, because their use of the land will continuously be violated, restricted, and often prohibited, because this piece of land has been dedicated as a replacement for another piece of nature that has been destroyed by those who have bought the carbon credit. So this instrument also means that damage has been multiplied to 2 places. There are 2 places of impact now, not only the place where the damage, the destruction, the mining, the oil extraction, the infrastructure project is taking place, but also impacted are the guardians of Mother Earth and is Mother Earth at the location where the compensation project takes place. So these are 2 additional rights, perhaps not directly of Mother Earth, but of the guardians of Mother Earth for very long times. As I said, we focus today on RED, the mechanism to reduce emissions from deforestation and forest degradation in tropical countries, and outline in the next to the expert witness statement and the direct impacts testimony more details. Let me finish my presentation of the case with a few images and a clear call on the judges. Images from 2 different continents, starting from the top left and moving protests in Brazil in the Amazon against the concrete carbon offset or RED project that would have restricted the land use of the indigenous communities in that area. In the center right, a carbon violation project, I call them, in Uganda, in Western Africa, where communities, even though they had title to their land, were prohibited to continue to cultivate the land as they had done before, because their cultivation areas were used as for tree planting, and those trees soaking up carbon as they were growing were then sold as carbon stores, so that a company in Europe could say, I continue to pollute, but I do that without damage to the climate because I have paid for those trees to be planted in Uganda. So don't hold me accountable for contributing to climate change, because I don't. I have paid up. I have neutralized. I have compensated my damage. In reality, the damage has been aggravated on many levels. The damage to the climate, but also the damage to the local communities who have lost their sustenance and who, as we have heard in the morning, in the case of Mauritius, the same in Uganda, those communities have contributed nothing to the climate crisis that we face today. On the top left, an example of a biodiversity offset project on the island of Madagascar, where equally a mining company, the largest mining company in the world, in fact, Rio Tinto, obtained the right to obliterate 1,600 hectares of Mother Earth in the form of a very diverse forest, with the argument that they were preventing local communities from continuing their shifting cultivation and therewith restoring Mother Earth in that area supposedly threatened by destruction through local communities. These are the perversities also that come with the mechanism. And finally, a film also from the island of Madagascar that tells the story again of how this mechanism of financialization allows pollution in our industrialized world, and communities who've never contributed to the crisis that we face today are made to pay the price because their land use that has not destroyed, that has in fact respected the rights of Mother Earth. Those land uses are restricted, and those areas, their land, Mother Earth, is dedicated to protection areas. So let me call or finish my presentation with a call on the panel of judges to establish an international civil society mechanism that looks into the violations that...
Jutta,
yes.
We have one of the judges before you introduce the next presenter, before you step down. We have a judge that has a question.
Yes, may I finish quickly my suggestion to the panel? To establish an international mechanism, really, to look and identify the perpetrators of those crimes, the institutions, the companies, and the organizations that are engaged in and promote these mechanisms with the multitude of names that they have, and establish that mechanism with a view of bringing charges against those perpetrators and holding them to account, because until today they're not held to account. In fact, they're being lauded as having developed a novel mechanism that combines protection, for example, of forests and climate. So it's that international mechanism that we need to bring forward really a case and show that these are serious violations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation and all the years of expertise that you've put into developing these ideas. My question is, in terms of the mechanisms that you're speaking about in terms of financializing nature and the commodification of nature really, is what do you see really as the most, the biggest drivers behind this in the corporations, and also the most effective ways that, in your experience, you've been able to see dismantling those mechanisms?
The driver is the continuation, in my view, the continuation of accumulation in all its possible forms. Mining companies looking to being able to have or maintain a social license to operate for a few more years, and having understood that they need to come up with another illusion that mining can be green. The oil companies, the coal companies, having understood that public pressure does not permit the continuation of the dirty business that has been done for over a century. But at the same time, doing all they can to continue that very dirty business. So the drivers are the old industry that has brought us onto the multiple crises that we face. Very clearly, I see this. They're not always very visible, but certainly that is where the driving comes from. And with the intention to being able to present dirty industries that will continue to be dirty, that will continue to be responsible for a multitude of violations of Mother Earth and of communities that inhabit Mother Earth, to be able to continue pollution, to be able to secure both the legal licenses and the financial means. Because when you look at the large international institutions that provide financing to those dirty industries, in particular the mining industry, but also the oil and coal industry who buy those red credits, for example, or the aviation industry that will buy these credits, for example. In order for them to obtain the financing they need to continue their destruction, they need to present those carbon offset plans. They need to present to the World Bank, to the IFC, those biodiversity offset plans. So that is the motivation, and the drivers behind that are the companies, the shareholders, the old dirty industries that will do anything and everything to be able to continue the destruction. What has been able to expose and maybe slow? I believe exposure. I believe hearing the cases at previous tribunals has done a lot. Oops, I hear the echo. I will ignore that. There has been a shift in public discourse through critical discussion of the impacts of this new violation, of these new mechanisms. And I believe establishing the tribunal here, establishing an international mechanism could elevate that public perception and understanding that this is a very dangerous trend that is also involving a multitude of violations. I think it could advance the public understanding of the situation very much, and that in the past exposure of that, pulling the smokescreen that those industries have set up, dismantling that through public discussion, I believe, has been and will continue to be a very, very effective way of stopping violation and bringing those who are responsible to account. I believe that's in a second step, that would be, I believe, an important advance also to see that this is not something that can be done risk-free.
Thank you, Jutta, so much for the presentation. I just have a question with regard to what one of the recommendations in terms of establishing an international civil society mechanism, and with the hope of bringing charges against these entities. One of the central questions or issues about financialization of nature rests on almost from colonization, commodification of, basically commodification of the commons. And in an age where, you've talked about, the question that Osprey has asked about what are the driving forces, and we know that so many things are linked together beyond the commodification of the so-called natural commons like seeds, land, air, and all that. We're also in a space where everything is being commodified and financialized, such as public services, in an age where everything is up for commodification, and in an age where rural-urban divides, for example, are so strong. How do we get to a place where we link not just this kinds of financialization and commodification, but how do we build, a better analysis of the systemic and structural, multiple and intersecting injustice and oppressions that people across the world are facing, especially those on the front lines of climate change. But beyond that, because climate change means so much, especially when you look at the race and class dynamics of those being impacted, how do we make those connections stronger? And of course, in the absence of, we know the problems around the modern legal systems, the limitations that we have and the limitations of asking for justice from states, governments, which are inherently, which have been created to facilitate the rights of corporations and the 1% or the local elite. How do we then offer analysis and push forward work that actually makes this connection stronger for the people in the grassroots?
One of the really subversive and dangerous aspects of these new initiatives of financialization, and in particular of the introduction of carbon offset trading, has been that it has targeted not only the large corporations as possible buyers of carbon credits, but you and I, the people who take airplanes and do that with a bad conscience. The people who do, I don't know, launch the band that will launch a CD and does a big tour with all the bells and feathers and all of the light and emissions that entails, feels bad about it, and is being presented this absolution, this indulgence of saying, I can buy a credit and feel I have done my piece. So this has been a very dangerous way of normalizing destruction without me feeling bad. And of course, the root causes are systemic and not individual consumption. But sharing or developing a mechanism that is also available for the individual consumer has meant that public debate in the global north, where the majority of the consumers are that use these instruments, how many of you in the audience, for example, will have clicked, yes, I pay €5 extra to make my flight carbon neutral? How many of you will have said, yes, I pay a little extra to print the new brochure carbon neutral? You know, not a big deal. It's not costing a lot, but I can feel good. I don't have to think about whether that brochure is needed or that flight is needed. That has led to a normalizing. At the same time, communities, for example, in Madagascar or in Brazil, they're not told that this is a trading mechanism that justifies legal or moral continuation of destruction. They're told this is a new protection, this is a new way of protecting your land. This is a way of protecting the forest. So they're not given the whole picture. And people here who buy those credits aren't given the whole picture because they don't see the destruction. They don't see the restrictions put on communities because they're very distant locations, very far apart. Often those projects take place in very isolated places, hard to get to, easy to control by those who put up those carbon or biodiversity projects. So one way of advancing the discussion also is, if there were a mechanism that discusses this, it would bring together the two ends of the discussion, that those who have engineered this process do a lot to keep apart. They do not want me going to a community affected by their carbon project. They do not want you to go to a project affected by a CDM project. So if there is a mechanism that facilitates that bringing together, it will also change the public discourse. I have no doubt about that. Each time we have achieved that with our limited means, it has had a reaction. Public resistance to that is growing. And I believe that is the way to go, to make clear the links between those two distant ends of the discourse. And of course, to never tire to expose that it's the mining industries, the airline industry, the largest, quickest growing industry that will heat up and wreck the planet, that is making use of this new instrument. And again, also, I believe it is, the violations on the communities are so obvious. The human rights violations in a lot of those examples, they're plain for everybody to see once you get there. They're not difficult. They're not even hidden. And I believe it's also not a far step to show the violations to the rights of Mother Earth once we start looking at these and exposing these examples, because it's also very clear, once you parcel up Mother Earth, you negate her wholeness. You negate that sort of she is based on an integrity and interrelation of relations. So I believe there is also that possibility to advance and maybe get a different discourse as society about a different way we have to look at our own relations also.
Okay, thank you, Jutta.
Buenos días con todas y con todos. Mi nombre es, mi nombre es Melissa Moreano. Yo soy de Ecuador y tengo más de 10 años de experiencia realizando investigación en la Amazonía ecuatoriana y también contribuyendo a las comunidades que resisten a la explotación petrolera en esa región. Y últimamente también que resisten a la explotación minera metálica y a lo que se viene llamando ahora los nuevos mecanismos del capitalismo verde, como la que vengo a hablar en esta ocasión.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. If you could proceed to some of the facts and information that you'd like to share.
Como mencionó Jutta en la presentación del caso, yo vengo a compartir con ustedes los impactos a nivel nacional de un programa tipo red, que se llama así, que es llevado a cabo por el gobierno ecuatoriano. Quiero empezar simplemente afirmando que poner precio al deseo de conservar la naturaleza, que es otra forma también de mercantilizarla, es una idea que ha tomado demasiada fuerza en las negociaciones climáticas orquestadas por las Naciones Unidas y que están llevándose a cabo ahora mismo. Esta idea ha impulsado mecanismos como el mercado de carbono y red, del que ya habló Jutta, que ponen un precio a la naturaleza y a partes de ella, como a los bosques o a los servicios derivados de los ciclos naturales, como la captura y el almacenamiento de carbono. Sobre todo este último servicio están en el corazón del mercado que se está discutiendo, que toma un montón de espacio en las discusiones del cambio climático y que se ha reportado además mucho que no está sirviendo, ¿no? Que es una falsa solución. No está ayudando a disminuir la emisión de gases de efecto invernadero en el planeta. Son soluciones falsas que además provocan muchas violaciones de derechos humanos a los derechos colectivos, indígenas y territoriales. Solo por poner un ejemplo, y estoy segura que el siguiente testigo profundizará en esto, en Nigeria se produjo recién un reporte en el que se habla que en el país se ha establecido un sistema de proteccionismo militar y exclusión basada en el carbono, promovido por el establecimiento de Red Más en el país. Pero hoy vengo a hablar específicamente de este programa tipo red que el gobierno ecuatoriano mantiene desde hace 10 años para ilustrar dos argumentos de estos nuevos mecanismos. El primero es que estas falsas soluciones del capitalismo verde producen una nueva forma de mercancía que afecta de nuevas formas de la naturaleza y a las formas que tenemos de relacionarnos con ella. Y segundo, que estos mecanismos al mismo tiempo contribuyen a intensificar la extracción de combustibles fósiles, una actividad que viola los derechos de la naturaleza en todo sentido, como acabamos de ver en el caso anterior. Para empezar, yo tengo una presentación. How does it work? I don't know. Bueno. Para empezar voy a describir súper breve el programa al que me estoy refiriendo, que se llama Programa Sociobosque. Este es un mecanismo de pago por conservación de bosques creado por el Ministerio del Ambiente con asesoría de conservación internacional y de la GIZ alemana, aunque no es extraño porque no es públicamente reconocido la contribución de la GIZ. El programa entrega un incentivo económico a los dueños de las tierras que tienen bosques, que se comprometen a conservar estos bosques, a no intervenir sobre ellos y entonces se transforman en socios de sociobosque. El compromiso se sella con un acuerdo de conservación que dura 20 años y que tiene más de 30 obligaciones para los socios y tan solo 3 para el Estado. Uno de los objetivos del programa es disminuir las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero a causa de la deforestación, que es el objetivo de red. Desde junio de este año, Ecuador pasó a la fase 2 de red, que quiere decir que puede empezar ya a recibir dinero en base a los resultados que ha mostrado. El otro país en Latinoamérica que también está en esta fase es Brasil. La transición a la fase 2 de red se debe muchísimo a lo logrado por el programa Sociobosque durante los últimos 10 años, se estableció en el 2008. El programa desarrolló una estructura normativa e institucional para poder transferir los fondos, se transfieren los fondos directamente a las cuentas bancarias de los socios. y en haber desarrollado este convenio que establece las obligaciones de los socios y lo que pasaría si es que dejan de conservar los bosques, que quiere decir si es que talan una parte del bosque o realizan cacería comercial, por ejemplo. Y también el programa ha ayudado masivamente a ordenar la tenencia de la tierra en el país, que siempre ha sido un freno a los mercados capitalistas, para que entren los mercados capitalistas, ¿no? La tenencia de la tierra en el Ecuador es muy informal todavía, o era antes del programa. Entonces, el país está listo ahora para transformar Sociobosque en un programa totalmente de red, sin haber evaluado los impactos que ya está teniendo el programa en el país, sobre todo en relación a derechos indígenas y territoriales, que voy a explicar luego, y los derechos de las mujeres indígenas, por ejemplo. Se ha reportado que mujeres Sáchila y Achuar, dos etnias, dos nacionalidades del Ecuador, denuncian que no han recibido los beneficios del incentivo, que solamente conocen las obligaciones de no poder seguir usando el territorio como se utilizaba y que no ven los beneficios, ¿no? Por eso también secundo el pedido a este tribunal y a futuros tribunales de que se mantenga atención sobre cómo este programa nacional se va a transformar en red. Especialmente tomando en cuenta que hay un convenio firmado, ¿no?, que dura 20 años y que como las comunidades ya tienen este convenio firmado con el Estado, eso puede afectar enormemente si es que ellos quisieran luego oponerse a la transformación del programa en red. Además, ya tienen una dependencia del ingreso que están recibiendo. Y ahora voy a entrar de lleno rápidamente a cómo este programa Sociobosque afecta directamente los derechos de la naturaleza como están estipulados en la Declaración Universal. Esta es una imagen del convenio. ¿Y cómo le voy pasando con este? Mi primer argumento. Esta es la tabla que describe el programa Sociobosque escoge las áreas que va a conservar con 3 criterios. El más importante es los servicios que provee el ecosistema, ¿no?, que están aquí resaltados con el círculo rojo. Estos servicios son refugio de biodiversidad, regulación hidrológica y almacenamiento de carbono y conectividad. Afirmo que este proceso de cuantificación, como ven, tienen algunas variables que se utilizan para seleccionar estas áreas, ¿no?, pero el de servicios ecosistémicos es el que más peso tiene para seleccionar esa área. Entonces es un criterio muy importante para Sociobosque. Yo afirmo que este proceso de cuantificación de los ecosistemas fragmenta la naturaleza y la transforma en cosas diferenciadas, ¿no?, porque a través de esta transformación en cosas separadas, fragmentadas, diferenciadas, se puede ponerles un precio y comercializarlas. Y al hacerlo se rompe la integridad de la naturaleza y se desconoce y viola los artículos 1 y 2 de la Declaración Universal de los Derechos de la Madre Tierra, que están escritos ahí en inglés. El segundo argumento es que el programa Sociobosque ha creado ya una mercancía, que es la hectárea conservada. Es un nuevo aporte también del programa respecto a la conceptualización de lo que son los mercados de la naturaleza. Y esta hectárea conservada tiene ya un precio. En esta tabla lo que vemos es lo que paga el Ministerio del Ambiente por hectárea conservada de acuerdo al tipo de ecosistema y al tipo de socio, si es que es un individuo o si es que es una comunidad indígena. Yo afirmo que este proceso de poner precio a la conservación difunde la idea de que la naturaleza debe ser protegida solamente si es rentable, si esa actividad es rentable. En otras palabras, si es incluida en el mercado capitalista, transformando a la naturaleza en un trabajador proletarizado que debe producir para poder existir. Se condiciona la existencia de la naturaleza al pago. Esto es injusto para los humanos y lo es también para la naturaleza, que es apropiada y esclavizada a niveles que no se habían visto antes. Y esta es la nueva mercancía, ¿no?, a la escala de sus ciclos y funciones. Y esto viola los derechos establecidos en el primer artículo de la Declaración Universal, ¿no?, el derecho a existir, a ser respetada esa existencia y a regenerar sus ciclos. Mi siguiente argumento es que esta mercancía lectaria conservada puede ser fácilmente transformada en una unidad de bosque que captura y almacena carbono y que este es el objetivo final del Ministerio del Ambiente. Ahora, como ustedes se deben imaginar, al interior del propio Estado ecuatoriano hay una lucha de poderes en donde los intereses extractivos muchas veces se imponen, pues la mayoría de veces se imponen, y que esta mercancía está siendo ya comercializada en un mercado de combustibles fósiles, de extracción petrolera. Y esto se debe a que el programa no prohíbe dentro de las áreas que dice conservar la extracción de petróleo. Entonces, si se encuentra petróleo en las áreas conservadas por sociobosque, el Estado puede extraerlas porque es dueño del subsuelo. Entonces, la conservación de las áreas se condiciona solamente al no uso de la superficie por las comunidades locales, ¿no? El Estado puede hacer uso de estas áreas para extraer petróleo. Lo más preocupante, y quiero llamar mucho la atención sobre esto, es que el Ministerio del Ambiente se transforma en un asesor, y esto lo dicen en los documentos, en un asesor a las comunidades para que usen el precio el dinero que están recibiendo, la cantidad, para negociar con eso la posible compensación de la petrolera. Es decir, la hectárea conservada puede ser vendida en el mercado de extracción de petróleo y también puede ser luego vendida en mercados verdes que están desarrollándose. El intercambio de la hectárea conservada con áreas afectadas por petróleo es muy posible. En este mapa lo que se ve es el territorio ecuatoriano. En el lado derecho está la Amazonía ecuatoriana. Y ahí tenemos los cuadrados, son los bloques petroleros. La extracción de petróleo en el Ecuador se realiza sobre todo ahorita en la parte norte, pero la nueva frontera petrolera se está expandiendo hacia el sur y es justamente en esa zona donde se establecen los territorios más grandes que están perteneciendo a sociobosque, que son estos polígonos rosados, lilas que se ven. Y el círculo grande lo que señala es los nuevos bloques petroleros que están siendo ofertados. Entonces, lo que yo afirmo es que, igual que con el peligro que hay de una disminución de la resistencia al transformar el programa sociobosque en red, también puede haber un peligro de que comunidades que tienen un contrato firmado con el Estado y reciben un incentivo desde el Estado decidan oponerse a la extracción petrolera en sus territorios. Entonces lo que afirmo es que este programa está facilitando el avance, podría facilitar el avance de la frontera petrolera hacia el sur de la Amazonía ecuatoriana. Y esta transformación de un programa de conservación en un espacio de extracción petrolera viola los derechos de la naturaleza en todo sentido, como dije al inicio, y sobre todo también este derecho a estar libre de contaminación. Y por el tiempo voy a pasar al último, que es mi último argumento, que se refiere a las violaciones de este mecanismo a los derechos territoriales de los pueblos indígenas. Este es otro mapa en donde podemos ver ya solo la Amazonía. En azul, en los diferentes tonos de azul son los distintos territorios indígenas que existen en la Amazonía ecuatoriana, y podemos ver que todos los espacios que son supuestamente conservados por sociobosque están en territorios indígenas, ¿no? Más del 90% de la tierra colocada dentro del programa pertenece a pueblos indígenas. Como el programa, a través del convenio, demanda acceso y control de los territorios, de los espacios que están siendo conservados, ellos tienen la obligación de monitorear que no se esté cortando el bosque, que se esté conservando, que no se esté deforestando. Y entre las obligaciones de los socios está en permitir este acceso en cualquier momento de personal del Ministerio del Ambiente, permitir, por ejemplo, que haya monitoreo aéreo. Ellos tienen que entregar además para entrar al programa un mapa georreferenciado de su territorio, entonces el nivel de control es muy, muy alto, ¿no? Y estas inspecciones se pueden hacer en cualquier momento. Entonces lo que afirmo es que los derechos de los pueblos indígenas que tenemos establecidos en la Constitución del Ecuador, además a la autodeterminación y a la autonomía territorial, están siendo seriamente afectados. Y además esto es antes de que el programa se transforme completamente en red y empecemos a ver mecanismos como los que ya se están viendo en Nigeria. Concluyo mi intervención afirmando que la naturaleza no puede ser tratada como un trabajador proletarizado. Poner precio a la naturaleza y al deseo de conservarla, además, destruye lo mejor de la humanidad: la solidaridad, la empatía, la aceptación de la diversidad y el respeto por el mundo no humano. Muchas gracias.
I had one question. The judges in Article 3, of course, are to provide recommendations on remedy and who's responsible. And we heard from the first presenter, Jutta, about how we need to start to talk about the facts of these issues to then identify who is responsible. But as you've been just discussing, just the level of focus on the financial drivers in these particular situations is so strong that it seems that ultimately the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Mother Earth, Article 3, Section 2L, talks about an economic transformation. Would you say something about your feeling or your understanding or your expertise on the need for a much larger economic transformation in light of the examples that you've provided about how, for example, land is only valuable as long as it's not generating money for somebody, or how communities, by agreeing to this, may be putting themselves at risk of oil exploration later. Could you speak to some of these issues in this larger question of economic transformation?
Sí, yo pienso que uno de las principales argumentos para discutir este tipo de mecanismos de conservación es qué tan efectivos son en términos, claro, económicos, en términos de conservación en el largo plazo, ¿no? Lo que está sucediendo y también lo que ha sido acusado el programa Sociobosque es que está reemplazando formas comunitarias de proteger el bosque, ¿no? Se condiciona la conservación y la relación con la naturaleza al pago y el dinero se vuelve un mediador en la relación de los seres humanos que habitan los bosques y la naturaleza. Pero al mismo tiempo se desplaza, digamos, este deseo de conservar la naturaleza por el simple deseo de hacerlo, o de tener una experiencia con la naturaleza por el simple deseo de hacerlo, y los mecanismos comunitarios y tradicionales de conservación, que podrían ser esta alternativa, no sé si llamarla transición económica, pero una alternativa comunitaria, colectiva, de conservación, que además ha probado ser muy efectiva, ¿no? Es por eso que hay bosques en los territorios indígenas, por la forma de uso que hay. Lo que está sucediendo también, que es un efecto, por ejemplo, del programa, es que el programa era financiado por el Estado ecuatoriano. Hasta hace 2 años el programa venía funcionando en los desembolsos, digamos, relativamente estable, pero hace 2 años que el Ecuador entró en crisis económica, los pagos dejaron de hacerse. Entonces, habían comunidades que se embarcaban en gastos, digamos, arrendaron una oficina en la ciudad más cercana, empezaron, por la mecánica del programa, tienen que contratar técnicos para hacer distintas cosas que el ministerio les pide. Eso es tener sueldos que pagar, arriendos que pagar, transporte de los líderes para ir a reuniones. Todo eso se cortó abruptamente y las comunidades empezaron a tener deudas y tuvieron que empezar a desmantelar toda la estructura que se había armado en la mayoría de casos para atender los mismos requerimientos del programa, ¿no? Entonces podemos ver que ese es un impacto que tienen estos programas de financialización cuando el flujo de dinero se detiene, ¿no? Y cuando las estructuras comunitarias para conservar también se han desmantelado, se han condicionado a un pago, ¿no? Como por ejemplo el pago de guardabosques.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Did you have a question?
Thank you very much for your. Thank you for your meeting.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It has been very informative. Just a very quick question. I mean, we do know that even with the deadly impacts of financialization of nature. They affect different communities, even those on the front lines of the climate crisis, differently. Could you speak a little bit to the ways in which these mechanisms are, in this particular space, are increasing, exacerbating, and restructuring, for example, the ways in which indigenous women and women in rural communities experience patriarchy. So I think it would be important to just have an analysis of how women are being specifically impacted on this and how already existing inequalities are being transformed.
Sí, uno de los efectos que se ha visto también es que el programa inyecta una suma alta de dinero en comunidades que no estaban acostumbradas a manejar esa suma de dinero y ha contribuido en algunos casos a agudizar las inequidades que ya existían dentro de las comunidades, ¿no? Que son comunes, el patriarcado es común al mundo entero. Y lo que sí se ha observado es que las mujeres no tienen acceso a los beneficios económicos del incentivo, que son manejados a través de las dirigencias indígenas, que son usualmente, no siempre, pero usualmente lideradas por hombres. Entonces esa es una de las denuncias que ha habido desde las mujeres. Muchas no saben que su comunidad está recibiendo dinero por conservación y denuncian que no tienen acceso a esos beneficios, y por el otro lado ellas tienen muy en cuenta las restricciones que empiezan a haber en el uso del territorio por su parte, ¿no? Porque en muchos casos se necesita usar, la idea es utilizar el territorio de manera itinerante. No quiere decir que se mantengan de manera itinerante todo el tiempo, pero sí hay un uso itinerante del territorio, que ese uso sí es restringido. Y eso afecta más a las mujeres, que son las que usualmente acceden a los recursos naturales.
Permítame, señor presidente, hacer un comentario y sobre todo agradecer a Melissa por su presentación, que fue sumamente clara y precisa. Me parece importante destacar el hecho de que este tipo de mecanismos no solo abren la puerta al extractivismo, sino que pueden servir incluso de opción para chantajear a las comunidades a que acepten el extractivismo. Cuando no pueden cumplir sus obligaciones, en el caso del socio bosque, muchas veces les obligan a que acepten la entrada de las petroleras. Pero va más allá de eso. Y me parece que tu presentación en ese sentido es muy buena y muy oportuna para que los miembros del tribunal puedan ir aterrizando sus conclusiones. A través de esta propuesta lo que se está haciendo es romper la relación humana con la naturaleza. Se está afectando la esencia misma del buen vivir. Se favorece con la idea de socio-bosque la individualización, debilitando las comunidades. Simultáneamente se sigue mercantilizando la naturaleza y se está entonces rompiendo la posibilidad de lo que ya dije, es el buen vivir. En ese contexto también la relación del ser humano con la naturaleza se tecnifica. Hay que contratar técnicos, hay que contratar expertos para cuestiones que antes hacían normalmente las comunidades. Yo llego a una conclusión, sobre todo, señor presidente y miembros del tribunal, de que la afectación de los derechos de la naturaleza va siempre de la mano de la afectación de los derechos humanos. Las dos cosas están estrechamente vinculadas. No solo es en el caso de los defensores de la naturaleza, cuando son afectados sus derechos al ser criminalizados, sino la existencia de las comunidades en su vida en armonía con la naturaleza.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Ken Henshaw. I work for a civil society organization called Social Action based in Nigeria. I am of Efik extraction from Old Calabar. We own vast forests in the Niger Delta of Nigeria, where I live and work. I speak here for the people of the mangrove forest in Cross River State, for the people of the Ekuri communities in Cross River State, for the people of the Mbe Mountains in Cross River State. I speak because I'm an impacted community member. I feel the effects of extraction, I feel the effects of climate change firsthand.
Please provide us some facts or information to let us learn more about that.
Absolutely. This conversation is essentially about red. But to get the context appropriately and to get it right, it's important to first understand exactly where I'm coming from. This project RED is being implemented in the Niger Delta. And I'm sure you may have heard about the Niger Delta of Nigeria in different contexts altogether. You may have heard about it as that place where oil has been extracted from for the past 60 years. In 60 years of oil exploitation in the Niger Delta, the environment has been terribly and terrifyingly degraded, destroyed to the point it cannot be restored. In 60 years of exploration of crude oil and extraction in the areas of the Niger Delta, gas, associated gas, has been flared non-stop for 60 years. There are communities that have never seen the difference between night and day, because there's permanently a large flare, and there's no difference between night and day. It is the community I speak about. It is the area in the world where the United Nations Environment Programme conducted an assessment in 2011 and came to the conclusion that the soil, air, and water had been so destroyed that it would take at least 30 years to restore it back to fusion. It is an area in the world where I have seen dead rivers. I don't know if any member of the panel has seen a dead river. It is a river that has rainbow at the top, the product of oil spills. It is a river where no crabs, no fishes, nothing lives. It's a still river. It's a dead river. I don't know whether anybody has ever smelled dead air. I breathe it every day. It is air that you inhale and it leaves a taste in your tongue. It is air that is polluted by the effects of gas flaring. That's the area I live in. We have lived with the effects of hydrocarbon pollution for 60 years. In this period, cases of cancer have risen more than in any other part of the world. In this period, our farming systems have been completely destroyed. We put cassava crops in the ground, and after a few months, you go and uproot it. You squeeze it and one comes out. What comes out of it is crude oil. Waters have been polluted, but unfortunately we still have to drink the same water and bathe in the same water. The United Nations Environment Programme say that the water we drink in the Niger Delta is polluted by a chemical component called benzene, 900 times higher than any human being should take in. I still drink that water because there's no other choice. The earth has been so degraded, modern nature has been so destroyed, that it seems nature is confused. When it rains, it doesn't really rain water anymore. It rains something acidic, something that itches the skin, something that destroys the roof, something that changes the color of your car. That's what comes, from the sky. Our farming systems have changed. We no longer know when to plant corn or cassava, because these things are planted according to rainy seasons and dry seasons. We no longer know because we live with the effect of climate change. Our context is ironical. It's ironical because it is the product that is taken from our land which causes climate change. But we're also the biggest sufferers of the effect of climate change. In 2012, ladies and gentlemen, we had what was the biggest flooding disaster we've ever seen in the country. Sea levels rose to up to 20 feet. Whole communities disappeared. An entire farming season was eroded. My colleague, Vivian, who sits in the crowd, spoke to an octogenarian, a man over 80 years old, and the man simply said, I have never seen anything like this before. We live with the effects of climate change. And so the same corporations who extracted crude, destroyed the climate, have now come back to us in another area of the same Niger Delta as saviors of the climate. It's ironical that in the east of the Delta is oil exploitation. In the west, we have got vast, pristine forest, untouched. Some of the largest forests remaining on the globe. The Kuri people in in the 1990s formed something called the Equity Initiative. It's a community-established, community-run NGO dedicated to preserving the forests. They successfully preserved 33,000 acres of pristine forest on their own. No government support, no carbon credit, no RED. They didn't need it to preserve that forest. The people of the mangrove forest developed a relationship with the forest because they see themselves as one with nature, one with the forest. They protected some of the best mangrove forests imaginable. The people of the Mbe Mountains, who live on the border between Nigeria and Cameroon, have preserved that very vast, beautiful forest. They created a conservation organization called the Mbe Mountain Landlords Association, where they pool their resources together, not only preserving the forest, but also conserving some of the most endangered species on earth, elephants, gorillas, and many, many more. And then the market came. Then there was a story that there's something called RED, and that they will be paid for their forests. And so the government of Nigeria and the government of my state, Cross River State, stepped in, began to hunt the people, kick them out of their forests, threaten them, ask them not to step into the forest anymore. The forest was no longer that thing which the people preserved. It was now that thing which would bring money. And so, without consultation, without seeking the free, the prior, or informed consent of the people of the Cross River Forest, they stepped in. People started appearing in funny-looking suits, probing the forest, testing the carbon capacity of the forest. It was all strange to all of us. For us, the forest is not a trash can where you store carbon. It's not a sink. It is our place. It is our own. We live in the forest. It preserves our lives. We are the forest. And so we started hearing things like carbon credit, commercialization of nature, that somehow the pollution which had been carried out in the other part of the Niger Delta could somehow be sucked off with a kind of sink somewhere else. Our forest became a basin. At least so we thought. Distinguished President of the Tribunal, distinguished judges, it got to a point, to show their lack of commitment to the forest, it got to a point when the money that the government expected from RED, the huge cash fall that they expected from RED wasn't coming. And so what did they do? They stepped back into the forest that was originally ours. There has never been a time in our history where the forest has been more degraded than in the period of RED. Massive deforestation. It got so bad that last year, the governor of the state where RED has been implemented, a man called Ben Ayade, stepped into the forest and decided to acquire 10 kilometers on the left, on the right, and 10 kilometers on the left in the name of building a superhighway. Who needs 10 kilometers here and 10 kilometers there to build a superhighway? A superhighway that leads to nowhere, where there are already two existing roads in the same direction. But of course we all knew. We knew that the real intent wasn't a superhighway. It was to sell wood, to log and sell wood. And so the people have fought. The people have successfully stopped him from doing so. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to reiterate here, in the voice of the people of the mangrove forest of Cross River State, in the voice of the Mbe Mountain people, and in the voice of the Ekuri people, that our forest is not a sink. It's not a basin. It's not a trash can. Our forest is the abode of our ancestors. It is what we depend on for our existence. It is the hope of our children. It is not a sink. Permit me to say again here that our forest has got life. It lives, it breathes, it has rights. We are one with that forest. We are nothing without it. And so we come to this tribunal as a last resort, ladies and gentlemen. As a last resort, because we have fought. Severally we have been defeated. We come as a last resort because in other areas of the Niger Delta we have tried to fight those who have destroyed our forests, who have destroyed our environment, who have destroyed our climate. Recently, as recent as 2016, the people of two impacted communities in the Niger Delta, Ogale and Bile, took a company very heavily complicit in the pollution of the Niger Delta to a court in the United Kingdom. Shell was taken to court in the United Kingdom, and after months of deliberations and rigmaroling and nice talking, the court ruled. The court ruled that the company called Royal Dutch Shell was not liable for offenses committed by the company called Shell Petroleum Development Company, its subsidiary in Nigeria. Shell is not responsible for what Shell does. That's what it says. And asks us to go back to Nigeria and seek justice. And it is in Nigeria where Shell has a joint venture partnership with the Nigerian government. It is in Nigeria where justice is absolutely impossible, especially when it's against corporate interest. We have experience of how the legal system, locally and globally, has failed us. And that's why we come to the tribunal. And our prayers are very simple. It is, stop that thing you call red. Whether it is red plus, red minus, red multiplication sign, red asterisk, stop it. Our prayer is return our forest to us. We've managed it in the past, we can keep managing it. And finally, you cannot pay for nature. Nature and our forest has been sucking carbon even before you knew the environment was getting depleted. It will keep doing it whether you pay for it or not. Leave our forest. Thank you very much.
Judges, I have some questions. Are there questions by any of the judges? No? Thank you again. I have no questions. I think you presented a compelling and thorough examination, and I see there are a couple of questions. Go ahead. Thank you.
Ken, thank you so much for that presentation. I think all of us can agree that we got goosebumps from the rich history of the activism and resistance in Nigeria. My question around this is, as you said, the Niger Delta, animated in our own minds, basically has primarily been around the oil extraction there and Ken Sarowiwa and all that history. And I wonder, in your own, just in your own analysis, what do you think has been the impact of the opening up, the development paradigm of extractivism over oil and leading up to what we have now under RED? What are the conditions that oil extractivism has given space, the conditions that have resulted into where you are right now as a community with RED?
I think that there's an intrinsic relationship between the extraction of crude oil happening in Niger Delta and the fact that we now need forests to somehow suck the carbon. This is a clear relationship, and that relationship for me it's quite ironical, and I think it's ironical because I think we've violated nature in the first place. Because I think it's the reason that nature put crude oil so deep down in the earth. It was never supposed to have been extracted. There's a reason it was put down there. And so we have gone probing it, brought it out, burnt it, destroyed the climate, now we need my forest to suck it. So there's that relationship. And of course we live with the effects of climate change every single day. I tell you about a community called Bodo in River State. It's a community very rich in hydrocarbon deposits. If you drive into Bodo community, the only pastime in that community are burials. That's the only pastime. So you drive in and on almost every single wall you see a poster. And the instructive thing about the burial posters you see on the wall is the age of the people being buried. We thank God for a life well spent. He died at the age of 40, 35, 18. Life expectancy has so dropped that it's precarious. It's precarious to live in the Niger Delta. We are on death row. Recently we have something called SUTH, We don't know where it came from. But you wake up in the morning and you touch your car or your window and you see something black. Our kids live there. They breathe that air. I will return tomorrow, I'll breathe the same air. That's the region we speak about. So yes, hydrocarbons have a direct correlation with the abuse of nature's rights, with the fact that I'm being compelled to change my lifestyle as a forest-owning community in order to solve the mess of people who will not change their own lifestyles. It's wrong.